Hey Chris, how's it going today?
Hey, Billy, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. You are the star of a movie that we now have on Pure Flix. It's called Because of Gracia,
Yeah,
and it's a great movie. How did you get involved in the film? How did you come to find this movie?
thanks so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, because of Gracia was one of my favorite projects that I've worked on. I had a background in acting, started back when I was 10. So I've been doing it for a while. I kind of took a little bit of a break and then I got the audition for Because of Gracia as my first kind of faith-based project. And I'm a Christian. And so I was really interested in doing it. And it was just an awesome project to be part of. And it was definitely one of those things looking back that I'm so glad that I said yes to that audition and was able to be part of the project.
Well, and it went well for you. You ended up leading the project, right? You were the lead
Yeah.
actor, one of the
Yeah.
leads in that. And, I want to get into the contents of the movie and the lessons that people could take away and your faith. But you mentioned you started acting when you were 10 years old. Wow. What was it that led you into that? Was it just like a passion for being on the stage? Like how did that happen?
I tell people that it was kind of just God. I grew up in Minneapolis, so I wasn't living in an entertainment hub by any means. I was homeschooled. I was doing like a homeschooled theater co-op program, and so it was just one of those things where I was doing this theater thing. This lady was watching me and was like, "Hey, you're a cute little kid. Do you want to audition for this?" Target commercial or Best Buy commercial or whatever it was. And then I ended up getting an agent and just kind of, kept doing auditions. And eventually, my first job was a guest star in Law and Order. And then I did a couple feature films and a couple TV shows after that. And ended up doing Because of Gracia when I was, like 20, 24, 25. So it'd been a long time.
Was that for you the first project where you were taking on that big of a role? Because it's a big role in that film.
Not really. I was the lead in a few feature films. I was lead in two independent features and then one film for Universal. So I was pretty familiar with being, the main kind of lead as far as just the lines and the time that it takes to film and all that. So I was familiar with that.
So so it's interesting to me. I love talking to Christians who are actors, right? Who are working in this field because it's a tough field. It's hard work. I think people sometimes don't realize how hard the work actually is, and bringing a story together, making it come to life, portraying somebody else and doing it in a believable way. And a lot really goes into that. As a Christian, what have you ever found challenges? And some people will say no. Some people will say there aren't really challenges, but has it been tough to sort of bring your faith in or find the right fit for roles in your faith? I'm always interested in hearing from
Oh
performers.
yeah. Oh, definitely, for sure. That was it's always been a big thing for me is just having what I call my list of non-negotiables. There's certain roles that I won't do. It's non-negotiable for me, no matter how hard somebody's trying to get me to do it. I'm not going to do it. And so I think it's really important especially as a young actor. I'm almost 30 now, kind of feeling like I'm not so young, but especially when you're young, it's really easy for people to try to talk you into stuff, right? Just hey, it's just one scene. Hey, you're not having sex, you're just making out. Hey, it's not that bad. Hey, it's not this. Hey, it's not that. And you really have to have your list of what you are going to do and what you're not going to do. And it's really hard. I mean, there's so many young actors I know that really struggle with that because as believers, it's like, yeah, we want to be in the world, but not of it, right? It's like not everybody just wants to do faith-based projects. And I think that there's place for that. I think that there's place for Christians to be involved in, um, you know, secular quote unquote productions or whatever you want to call it. But I think it's just really important for people to really be steadfast and strong in what they are and what they aren't going to do. And so that was definitely a journey for me. And I think something that I did pretty well at with the help of, my close friends and parents, and was able to kind of, not do things that I look back and really regret.
Well, it's the allure of, attention and fame and money and all of that too, that sometimes I think makes people find themselves in a position where they are willing to sacrifice certain things because it's easy to let that happen. And those little things, if you don't have those non-negotiables, and I love that you sort of set it out that way, a list of non-negotiables. And it doesn't just have to be acting. There are lots of other fields where this is
Oh
important,
yeah.
that holding by your values is really important because it's so easy to end up at the end of a road you never wanted to be on.
Right.
And it's just one step at a time. So that's
Yep.
amazing. Have you had to say no to things a lot where you're kind of kicking yourself a little bit and saying, oh, I really wish there was a way I could make this work?
Not really. Most of the things that I say no on are things that, I feel pretty confident. Like I said, they're on my list of non-negotiables. So it's not something that I really want to do. Over the years, there was a couple projects that, you just know that there's a lot of buzz around this show, or it's with this certain actress or actor and it's going to be big. I think back when I was a little bit more kind of at the height of my kind of studio involvement. Right after I did the film with Universal, there was a few projects that was like, oh, like what, I wish I could really, be part of this, but you just can't, and it's, looking back, I don't regret any of that. It's not like I'm kicking myself still. I think in the moment, sometimes those decisions are hard, but it's never been anything that I look back and be like, oh man, I really wish I would have just compromised a little bit, you know?
That's amazing. No, no, I mean that's the thing. That I think for Christians, the reminder we have to have, and this is for anybody who's listening or watching and going through the same thing, trying to figure things out in their own lives, is that when we trust God, we're going to end up where we're supposed to be, and He's going to lead us there. When we don't trust God and we kind of go off on our own, that's when we find ourselves down at the end of that road that we might not want to be on. And so it's amazing that you've approached your career that way. And the thing in particular that I love about Because of Gracia is that you're dealing with a movie that has these not just faith themes, because the faith themes are there, but also real life themes, what young people go through. And your character Chase is a really interesting character to me. I think a lot of people watching it can kind of see themselves in that character at some point in their life when they were young, mostly. But what can you tell us, like, for those who haven't seen the film yet, how would you describe Chase?
Yeah. I loved playing Chase and Because of Gracia. It's a really beautiful coming of age story. And he's a young guy that's trying to figure out who he is, right? He's trying to figure out how to talk to girls, how to ask the girl out that he's interested in. He's trying to figure out how to stand up for his face or for his faith. He's trying to, find his voice. And so, I think that a lot of young people can really relate to Because of Gracia, because we've all been there. We've all had those relationships. We've all had those moments, as a Christian where, our faith is kind of being evaluated, or, we have an opportunity to step out in something and we don't always do it. So I think it's just an awesome coming of age story. And I think young people can really relate to it.
Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me as at a time right now, I think culturally, where there's just a lot going on and people need, I think Christians in particular need really good examples of people who are bold in their faith and they're doing it in a loving way. They're balancing that truth and that love. And we don't often see a lot of examples of that. In particular, we don't see them in Hollywood. We don't see them in films and movies. And one of the things that I love about this film is that you have some real moments where you actually get a chance to see characters who stand up and they make their voice heard on something, their faith mainly, and they do it in a really compelling way. And so there was something to that watching the film that I found inspirational, right? I was like, wow, that's really amazing to see that. So with that in mind, what would you say as a person who devoted so much time to this, you were the lead in it, what's the big takeaway? What are you hoping that people who watch the film will walk away thinking and feeling?
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the great themes, Billy, and I think Because of Gracia is really unique in that it is, targeting kind of that audience of high schoolers, and there's not a lot of faith content that I think really hits home with that demographic. And so, I think that there's a lot of takeaways from the film. How to go through relationships, how to stand up for your faith, how to choose your friends. We have a lot of themes about life and the sanctity of life. So I think that there's a lot in the film that really speaks to kind of that generation, young people. We even have developed after the film, we put together a whole youth curriculum about, for youth pastors and people that want to go through kind of systematically some of the themes. And it's a really great curriculum if there's, any youth groups or anything that want to check that out. But there's a lot in the film, and I think there's a lot of takeaways. But really our hope and our goal with Because of Gracia, I think, was to really make a film that really encourages that high school age group of young people.
Yeah, and you sort of noted, it sounded like in the beginning of the interview you were saying kind of that this was a project that was unique, in a number of ways for you, and when you look back at your career, maybe stands out in some ways. And I just wanted to hear a little bit more, because you spoke to it a little bit, but to give you a little bit more of a chance to explain what it was that was different or unique about this filming process for you.
Yeah, it was one of the first faith-based projects that I had ever been a part of. So, I mean, that right there was, an experience, and just really exciting to be able to be on set. We had a couple, spontaneous worship times, and Mariah Smallbone, amazing voice. We had so many Matt Schuler, and there's just so many like amazing singers, and we would have like these worship times. And so, I mean, it was amazing just to be in an environment of faith and to be part of a faith-based project. So that in and of itself was awesome. And I also think, it was a really defining moment for me as an actor, because it was actually one of the first times that I ever felt like I experienced God's presence while I was acting, was during this film, which was a super cool, unique experience for me that I had never really had before. Where, sometimes, like before a scene, I'd be praying like, okay, God, help me, and I'd feel close to God or whatever. But I had never really felt close to God while the cameras were rolling. And it
Wow.
was just such a cool thing for me to be a part of a project where, I felt near to the Lord while the cameras were on and while I was in character. And I had never experienced that before. And I think as an actor, it just kind of made me feel just such a sense of fulfillment in my gift and fulfillment in, the project. And like, wow, yeah, this is right. Like, this is what I was made to do. Like, this is why, I'm here and I'm doing this. And so it was 10 out of 10, just a phenomenal experience for me.
That's amazing. Actually, I've never heard an actor say that before. That's really interesting that you had that experience while you were on set, while you were in character, and that this was the first time you had that happen. That's really interesting. What was your faith journey? I know that's like one of those questions that could be
Yeah.
20 hours long, but I'm just curious, how did you come into faith and how did that happen for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up Catholic, and I like the Catholic Church. I like a lot of the stuff. And when I was 13, 14, I was going to some ecumenical prayer gatherings, and we were in worship, and I really, just for the first time, really kind of connected with God on a personal level. And so, if you know anything about Catholicism, like, it's kind of a big deal to not be Catholic, like once you've been Catholic. And so I asked my dad, I was like, hey, like, I don't really, I was supposed to be going through confirmation. I was like, hey, I don't really like necessarily feel like I'm supposed to be Catholic. I kind of want to go to this other church. And I felt close to God there. And so I want to do that. And my dad just graciously was like, okay, yeah, like if that's where you feel close to God, go for it, which is really awesome. And so I kind of started going to church when I was, 15, 16. And at the time, I was doing a big movie for Universal as a lead. $70 million budget, huge movie, all the bells and whistles, all the press, all the stuff. We did a 2 week press tour in Japan. It was like, it was nuts. And in the midst of all that, I went through really severe depression. I wasn't happy. I didn't feel like I had any real friends. My parents were starting to go through a divorce. It was just nuts.
A tough time. You were going through
Really
really at the height though, and I'm highlighting this because I think it's so important, because we assume sometimes that if we achieve something that it's just going to take all of the pain and the things that are going on in life away. So you're hitting this major movie, you're in the midst of that, and yet you're having this depression happen, which happens to
Oh
so
yeah.
many of us. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if you saw Justin Bieber's "Lonely" song, but I mean, it was like, like I was like almost like crying because like I could so relate to that. Like like you're at the height of your kind of like child acting thing, and then it's like, but you feel like you don't have any friends. You don't feel like you can trust anybody. I mean, that was me when I was 15, 16, and thankfully I had some really awesome friends back in Minnesota. I had some really great people that were kind of reaching out and speaking into my life. And through that, I really decided to kind of pursue a relationship with God, and really, really try to kind of lean into, okay, Jesus, who are you? Are you real? What do you have for my life? Why are you calling me to do this acting thing? What, just kind of like, what's up, Lord? And so I moved into a house that was it was kind of like a guy's discipleship house at the church that I was going to, and kind of put my acting on hold, like I said, when I was 19, 20, and really decided to kind of just pursue God. I started taking classes at the Bible college that's part of the church, and just kind of really gave myself to my faith community and to my walk. And it's the best decision I ever made. It was awesome.
And it changed your life, I would imagine. And then
Yeah.
after that, you do this movie though. So that's really interesting. You go through this period of time, and then
Yep.
you end up, back in acting a little bit again. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's so cool. And I think it just speaks of, God loves to bring things full circle. When we give things to him and just let him be in control, like he loves to just bless us, and, just give things back. Because I had thought like I was done with acting. I was like, I'm not going to go out to LA anymore. I hate LA. I'm done with LA, like all this stuff. And then I get this
It
audition for
wasn't
this.
just the traffic. It was more than the traffic, I assume.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I was like, okay, I'm done, whatever. And then I get this audition for Because of Gracia, and I was like, huh, okay, like I guess I can do this audition, and it is what it is now. And I've done a few films since then. I'm not necessarily pursuing acting as like a full time career, trying to make all my money doing acting. I work as a digital marketer. I'm involved. I just got elected to the city council of my city, suburb of Minneapolis. And so, involved in my church. So I kind of have a lot of, other things going on, but,
You seem like you need more on your plate. Like maybe you're not busy enough.
yeah, I could do another show. um,
That's amazing though. So it's also really interesting to hear you talk through this, because I think acting is one of those things, like any other art, that you get into and it can become very obsessive, right? You want to just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And again, you've followed what God has for your life. And that's amazing, because it's so easy again to get clouded and not to do that. And so your story really is an interesting one of taking that time, pouring yourself into church. Obviously you were meant to do this role. This role drops in front of you, and it's a really powerful role that has the ability to make a lot of change and has made a lot of change in people's lives. And now you're an elected official. You are, you're working in marketing. I mean, you got a lot going on. What would your message be, just as we close out here? And this is a heavy question for you, but somebody who right now might be watching or listening, or maybe they have a kid who's going through what you were with that depression and just facing those struggles, what would your message be to somebody like that who's facing that right now?
I think depression is one of the biggest things that is coming at young people right now. So it's a huge issue. I mean, it's something that, is really hard to go through. I've been there. For me, like I said, it was really reaching out to God and taking my questions to God. Really just being real with God, and it's okay to question things. It's okay to try to, ask God about whatever you want to ask God about. And so I think obviously the individual needs to make that hard decision, right? I mean, I think sometimes it's hard as parents or friends or, youth leaders or whatever to try to make somebody make that decision because you can't. But also just, being constant and just checking in and asking. I had a buddy who, when I was going through kind of the height of my bout with depression, he would call me every day and be like, "Hey, how's it going, man? Like, what's going on today? Like, let's pray. Like, let's connect." And so I think just being there for the person is just huge. And then on the person's end that's walking through that, just reaching out to God and being really real and honest with, how you're feeling and what you're going through, and not hiding it,
Yeah. No, that's such a good word. Thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing your story, talking about Because of Gracia. And anybody who's watching or listening, you can stream the movie over on Pure Flix. And we appreciate
Yeah.
you again taking the time today.
Awesome. Thanks, Billy. Really appreciate you reaching out, man.